did I move here? They're not gonna stop, are they? Alright, well, hope you guys don't mind the background noise. Number 23, the Wispfire Lantern. Wispfire Lantern is the type of tool that ends up being so bad that I'm almost thankful for it. This lantern has managed a level of such disrespectful incompetence that the general audience almost unanimously turned against it 2 whole times. Once when they figured out how much damage it returned in exchange for 1 silk strand, and then a second time when the damage values for blue tools got patched, and it still wasn't enough, topping out at less damage than the Architect Silk Shot while also needing 1 silk strand. Like, imagine a 4th variant of Silk Shot that not only did less damage than all of its competition, but had its trigger mechanism zip-tied to the grip so it always fired no matter what. Its only good pairing I was able to find was by setting it up with Weavelight to give it a functionally infinite capacity, but now you've just prevented Weavelight from doing its actual job, which is ensuring that you always have enough silk for at least 1 skill. It's like powering your bedroom fan with a fucking car battery. And in spite of all that it is, I remain grateful for the existence of this lantern just for making this video that much easier to write. I can only show genuine gratitude that this is a tool that, with every activation, further justifies why the burning bugs setting themselves on fire is actually just for the common good of the rest of Farloom's inhabitants. And the only outcome more generally favorable would have been if the Wisp Thicket as a whole just went up in smoke after I was finished with it. It's not like the underworkers would even notice, those fuckers already live inside a furnace. Number 22, Druid's Eye. It's only fair that I list out both the unupgraded ones as well, just to stay consistent with other videos, so most of the tier 1 vanilla tools that can be upgraded later on are expectedly gonna be somewhere at or near the bottom. But Druid's Eye gets a special treatment from me because of the 2 blues that can afford upgrades, this one has a souped up variant that can be achieved as early as Act 2, right after you get Fey Down Cloak to access the Memoriam. From there, you can acquire all 7 moss berries and then head back to the Moss Druid and snag the upgrade. You can obtain Druid's Eyes this early because it's not actually an upgrade, or at least not something I count as an upgrade, when Grubsong restored 1/9 of soul no matter what. It's taking Grubsong, axe kicking it in half, and then giving you a piece of it. Because of this, even other blue tools in the early game that don't seem to do much yet still have no problem overshadowing it. Fractured Mask, Magma Bell, and Warding Bell can all be accessed very early into the game, and by the time you got your hands on either Reaper Crest or Weavelight, there's really just no reason to ever put this on. Number 21, the Claw Mirror. You can't even upgrade it until Act 3 when facing Grape Turbio, but you can't even get it until Act 2 anyways when you face regular Cherry Turbio. So the amount of time you actually spend with the unupgraded mirror in practice ends up being very little, either because you're journeying to the 3rd act for the true ending, or you're wrapping things up in Act 2 because you're just speedrunning for an ending. And if you're doing that, then you're not using Claw Mirror. Having a unique bind animation with certain crests allows it to just barely successfully limbo under the bar of being called a Witch Crest exclusive, and the only reason for that is because Witch Crest already has a unique bind animation involving Hornet evacuating half a forest from underneath her armpits. It's worth using it on the early game crests just to see the unique animation, and then as soon as you can enjoy it to your heart's content, the very next thing you should do is slap it right back where you had it on the Witch Crest. Upgrading the crafting kit only increases the initial damage and not the subsequent 2 hits of 5 damage enemies will take afterwards. It's a small detail, but probably not something I should overlook since Paired Mirrors has the same problem. Number 20, Druid's Eyes. You just couldn't leave it the fuck alone, could you? You just had to do something with it. It could not be as simple as just restoring 1 strand of silk per instance of damage. It had to have some unusual condition attached to it that made it slightly less comfortable to use than what it should have been. What the hell is this? Why do I have moldy jello growing on my silk meter? Get the shit out of here. I understand one of the common arguments is that it can stack with the regen bonuses of the Reaper Crest. Well, I mean, Green Silk can't combine with Reaper Silk. No crossing streams allowed. But I think at that point, I'd just be better off using the Reaper Crest. If I've got access to Druid's Eyes, then that means I've been to the Memoriam, so I've likely found Reserve Bind and Spool Extender on the way there. And there's no way in shit I didn't double back for Weavelight once I was able to reach it, so what even is the problem I'm supposed to be solving with this tool here? I've already found everything else that helps me out with any silk struggles I might run into, and for the game to just toss Grubsong at me when I'm already so close to finishing out the 2nd act feels like too little too late. Also, don't craft bind if you have green silk primed, because it'll just wipe all of it out if you have any. Learning more about this tool is like scraping dog shit off your shoe and then somehow finding a bigger piece of dog shit underneath it. Number 19, the Pin Badge. I don't know, Team Cherry, maybe I'd be more keen on using it if I knew for certain you were done kneecapping all the needle strike attacks and then leaving it out of the patch notes. I don't know how the hell various smaller fixes and tweaks reads to the average player, but I've heard enough bitching about it, and found the bitching agreeable enough to at least ask for something more stringent, just on behalf of just everybody, to be honest. Because almost every crest in the game is exactly one various small fix away from slipping into a trash can, while a slightly better option gets used in its place. So if I'm looking at just the numbers for this one, I'd say it's only slightly worth it if you're running Witch or Wanderer, because both of their charged attacks actually put in enough damage to mean a shit. Architect and Shaman crests don't really have a charged attack worth building around, and the Beast Reaper and Hunter crests all have passive bonuses that are closely tied to attack frequency. And so I think you're better off building into those than jiggling around the D-pad holding a button down like you're waiting on the toaster to finish your bagel. And who knows, the 2 remaining good charged attacks in the game can still be sent to the morgue at any point in time after this video, so I can't even say for sure. Number 18, the Warding Bell. So, this bell shields Hornet when in the middle of binding. It is inscribed with a hymn of protection, like the description could not be pointing in a more specific direction as to what this does. This tool is supposed to protect me when I try to heal. So why the fuck doesn't it do that? I still get knocked out of the bind, the silk still gets wasted, and my ass doesn't get my 3 HP back. Actually, never mind, I'm gonna retract what I said. The description is too accurate. It's accurate to a fault. Protecting you from taking damage is all it does. I can give it some minor praise for preventing all your silk from being chopped when you get damaged during a bind, as is the case normally, but I'm still losing an absolute minimum of half my silk if I cock something up, and it's much more likely for binding to be successful if I'm using something like Injector Band. If I'm doing a burnout around a corner just so I can give myself cover for a quick bind, doing damage and actually fucking healing correctly are worlds apart on the priority ladder. I do appreciate that the damage it deals around you actually scales correctly now, but that was never really the problem I had with this one. The problem I have with Warding Bell is that it doesn't even do what its title, description, and visual effect all suggest it should be doing, which is protecting. Maybe the dead shoveler we take it from is some environmental storytelling, because it's obvious he was a little confused on how it works too. Number 17, the Snitch Pick. A little dash of everything in this bitch, but with no obvious proficiencies or secret tricks. It's like a salad without the lettuce. You know the lettuce sucks, but eating a salad without it just makes you feel dumb as shit. This metaphor makes 0 sense. The more I learn about how this tool works, the less I'm able to tolerate it. It says it gives you more rosaries, but the amount of rosaries dropped from the enemy when receiving the extra hit actually just gets subtracted from the total amount when they die, so just a net gain of 0 there. It says the claw line does additional damage, but it actually just tacks on an extra hit that deals half the claw line's damage, and the increase just ends up being like ballpark 25% of a regular needle hit. All these weird, uncomfortable drawbacks, and it's still one of the most expensive tools in the game, sitting at 740 rosaries. Christ, Grindel must be expecting a fucking daughter soon with all this cash he's hoarding. This is why I respect tools like Magma Bell and Multibinder way more, because they're infinitely more helpful despite that help being very targeted around certain behaviors and conditions. They apply just the right amount of seasoning to the right entree and it comes out tasting absolutely heavenly. The Snitch Pick is a messy old bitch, the kind of tool that recklessly covers the whole dish in salt and then assumes you're the moron if it doesn't taste good. Number 16, the Egg of Flealia. Having what you might call a tier maker's dilemma with this one. Okay, so you remember the super secret strat in the first game that involved handcuffing the Elegy Charm to Lifeblood Core and like forcing them to talk to each other so you could withstand 4 extra hits before the beams went away? Well, here's a question I'm sure at least 5 of you give enough of a shit about to actually candidly answer. Which charm would you say is pulling more weight in that strategy? Like, which one of these two puts the wombo in the combo? Like, you know what I mean? This is my dilemma when thinking about the Egg of Flealia and the Plasmium File. And I personally find myself leaning towards the file because I think it adds another tally point to the already impressive list of build options you can open up with it. Adversely, not only does the Egg's function feel like a slightly less effective substitute for Weavelight that also needs Weavelight to get the most out of it anyways, but if the Egg needs half a build's worth of other tools propping it up just to get any lasting effects out of it, I don't really know if I can just sit here and say it's good with absolute sincere honesty. It does have a place in Plasmium builds, that much is for certain, but I'm not about to flip over the whole kingdom and rescue 30 fleas just so I can get Spell Twister with a health limitation attached to it. Now, if it was just straight up Spell Twister, I might change my attitude a bit, but that ain't the game we're playing. So, now here's where shit starts getting just a little difficult. We have now blown right past every tool in the blue category that I would deem suboptimal, hard to build around, or just generally not worth. From this point forward, a 14 could blossom into a big, beautiful 5 given the right conditions and supporting arguments, so I'm not going to recite the tier list anthem of "this is just my opinion, bruh." You know what a tier list is. I think most of you are pretty aware of my general standards when making these, and it's not like all this info isn't going to change in 6 months anyways after patch Silksong and 7 gets added in that finally just takes Cogfly out of the game and gives us a permanent snare setter. Number 15, the Wreath of Purity. The amount of bailouts this little Christmas decoration can afford is unfucking real. So basically the way it works is that being submerged in muck maggot water for 3 seconds counts as a tick of damage to the wreath, and entering the water again shortens the timer by 0.5 seconds, going from 2.5 to 2 to 1.5, so on and so forth. There's a lot of implicit math that goes into this tool, but essentially you can withstand up to 14 instances of touching infested water, so long as you're immediately jumping out of it as soon as you hit it. And I'm just going to be real, if you have trouble staying out of the water so much that 14 bailouts sounds reasonable, losing the wreath around your neck is the absolute last concern you should have. Like, if that still isn't enough for you, I'm going to give you a courteous reminder to remove your pants when you sit down to shit, because if you want more out of this, then you might have bigger problems. It also helps with Lugoli's boss fight by negating the infested effects of her maggot projectiles, while of course doing nothing about its double damage. You know, the actual threat. I can't hate it. It may only come in useful during 3 of the game's 29 regions, but I'd be grilling burgers on Delulu Island if I said it didn't come in clutch when it mattered. Number 14, Memory Crystal. The ice clone might hit something, or it might not. It could hit something else that didn't even damage you to begin with. But this is the only other tool aside from Druid's Eyes that allows for comeuppance upon taking damage. I would suggest pairing it with Druid's Eyes to maximize this comeuppance, but that would require using fucking Druid's Eyes. This very carefully places the utility ceiling of Memory Crystal in the "it's kind of fun when it works" folder. It has 0 known synergies with any other tools. It's incredibly awkward to fit into a build since the game doesn't give you any expansive or viable options themed around revenge damage. Bosses with a working vertebrae and a will to live just zip right past the blast zone by accident most of the time. And my only piece of advice that might actually be worth something is to just hope it's able to find its mark on any enemy that takes up at least 25% of your monitor space. Number 13, the Spool Extender. I'm gonna try and frame this with the utmost care and precision, but at no point in any of my Act 2 adventuring did I ever feel like Spool Extender was completely necessary. I don't really have any negatives or strikes against it personally. I think the game chooses to give it to you at a reasonable enough time, since your silk capacity is probably reaching the halfway mark to 2 consecutive heals, and 3 extra strands might just be enough to get you there. It always helps a little bit in every build it's in, but it seldom feels like the help it provides is massive enough to consider it an unconditional mainstay, especially when the game just spent 1.5 acts teaching you the value of silk regen with Weavelight, Druid's Eyes, Reaper Crest, fucking like 2 other things that I currently can't think of right now, but it's probably in the game too. If you visited Mount Fae and you formed an attachment with the Weaver Silk Shop, then I guess having 3 extra strands of silk will make that asking price a little less steep, and you can always slap it on if you're trying to retrieve a cocoon, and it'll bump your max back up to 12 again. But unless I've found the Witch Crest, my space for blues is extremely limited, and there are way too many blue tools I'd rather have slotted in that isn't this. Number 12, the Longclaw. Longclaw gives each of the 7 crests a slightly different percentage boost that affect both height and width of a needle hit, seeming to be roughly dependent on how much space a hit can cover without Longclaw. This is going to increase the range of the needle's attack by around 27% lengthwise. The only exception to this being the Witch, which is only around 11%, I'm guessing because it's already long enough. Longclaw is definitely useful, but it's hard to vouch for its necessity since Hornet has dash attacks, claw line, and a way more comfortable set of movement options than the Knight ever really did. Downstriking with the needle also covers more space, making platforming challenges just barely easier than they were before, and I can sit on my ivory gamer chair all day and say that it's better to just learn the base moveset and be confident enough with it to tackle the platforming without Longclaw, but then I see the pencil-wide hitbox Wanderer mains get to use, and then I kind of start understanding a little bit. It's also helpful for avoiding contact damage when fighting enemies, and it is playstyle dependent, but then again, most of these are. far. Like I said, it's good, just don't go expecting it to turn over the entire kingdom for you like it did in the first game. Number 11, the Claw Mirrors. Being an Act 3 exclusive means I better be tearing through some ass with whatever you give me, so this measuring in as the highest damage blue tool in the entire lineup isn't really a huge surprise or anything. It's fun when it works, but I do have some gripes. I'm not sure if I appreciate one of its best crests also having a unique bind animation that overrides the twirl animation Claw Mirrors are supposed to give you. I kind of just feel like they fucked up a little bit on that one. I feel like it should be the other way around. And sometimes the Claw Mirror's blast will kill the enemy before the Witch's Bind even has a chance to properly heal off of them, which is... like, I guess, should I be mad about that? Like, I guess whatever was trying to kill me is dead now, sure, but like, what the fuck? Beast Crest has an even worse version of this problem since you have to strike enemies immediately after binding to restore health. And I've tried making it work on Architect because I think some zoning defense on top of my bullet spam is a fun cancer combo, but Multibinder feeds into both Witch Crest and Mirrors so well that it just doesn't feel right unless I'm using Witch. Number 10, the Magma Bell. Guys, I don't know what's come over me recently, but I usually loathe items like this. Hyper-specific benefits that only end up being useful in a micro-fraction of situations, but Silksong clears that hurdle with 2 easy steps. Make damage from lava and fire slap like a battleship, and then put it fucking everywhere. Deep Docks has an obvious synonymity to lava since it's basically just a giant forge. Farfields is right next to it, so I guess that's enough for the region to just have it by proxy. Any steam-powered contraption means there's probably a room of hot coal 2 scenes below it. I mean shit, even forest areas aren't safe from it. You could just run into a cult that thinks tossing fireballs up their ass is a form of worship. And suddenly the Magma Bell isn't nearly the situational pick I was ready for it to be. There's one major reason why I can't place this any higher than where it is, which is that explosions technically don't count as fire damage, which can be found in Article F subsection 6 in the Scientific Constitution of Bullshit. I don't care how hard the flyers in the Deep Docks Walter Johnson their bombs at me. They're still using fire as a weapon and the effect should still count. Number 9, the Quick Sling. Being an Architect main isn't required for this one, but you will have a hard time finding a good place for it in most builds that do not involve the Architect crest. Quick Sling effectively doubles your damage output in exchange for burning through your pouch capacity twice as fast, but only with certain red items that are classed as throwable. Conch cutters, curved sickles, straight and threefold pins, anything of that nature. Volt Vessels seem to benefit the most from this, considering it's the highest damage red tool that can be thrown. Not even the double Sting Shard self-detonation tactic can produce enough damage to outpace it. Volt Bolas clock in at 85 damage per unit if all the sparks on both orbs manage to hit the same target, and since the entire point of Quick Sling is to get all your damage out as quickly as possible, I think it's okay to imagine Quick Sling as a double damage bonus in this context, so that's 170 in total in the best possible situation. On paper, Quick Sling doesn't even technically do anything. It's not really increasing the damage of your tools, nor is it extending your red tool capacity. Like, you just throw one more than you normally would have, and that's really about it. But sometimes, firing through all your ammo reserves and just taking a bitter shit on one specific dude is exactly what the situation calls for. Predicting enemy spawns, taking advantage of a staggered boss, punishing an attack with a long recovery time, getting rid of Gargant Glooms in a timely manner. You are gonna hate yourself if you don't have the shard bundles to back up the gameplay loop, but when you've spent hours stockpiling the little shits and have nowhere else to put them except in the eye sockets of your sworn enemies, Quick Sling is going to be there for you. Number 8, Reserve Bind. It may not be able to fairly compete with Pouch or Filament, but this blue tool might be a dark horse candidate for the most flexible tool in all of Silksong. I love how many different builds you can just shove this thing into. It's good on Witch Crest because more healing also means more damage if you're running it with Multibinder and Claw Mirrors. It's good on Architect Crest because you can just use it as a tactical reload button for all your reds. It activates any on-heal effects other crests might have, like on Beast and Reaper. You can get rid of Muck Maggots in an emergency, and the Reserve Silk can't be touched by the Muck Maggot decay effect. If you're at 1 HP, this enables 3 binds in a row from 1 all the way to max HP, and I'm not sure why you're holding on to all that silk when you probably needed a heal during the process of gathering it, but I'm running out of zingers here. Using it as an emergency heal during tougher platforming sections can also work, but I think ODing on blue Gatorade has most of that jurisdiction covered. Now, when you're ready to have a little chat about how this should give the crit bonus on Wanderer Crest a permanent on button, you know exactly where to find me. Maybe give that bitch some actual build options that don't involve rosary farms. Number 7, Injector Band. It's quick focus, only somehow even more applicable than it was before. The only negative I can draw against this one is that it doesn't affect the speed of the Architect's Craft Bind, but nothing short of tossing coins in a fucking fountain is gonna get them to pay attention to that shit, so who even cares? I don't. Nope, not at all. It has a really nice interaction with Multibinder in that it shortens both bind durations by 50%, resulting in a bigger than normal heal that's also slightly quicker than a normal heal, so long as both are equipped. And it even works with Beast and Witch despite those particular bind animations already being shorter than other crests by default. Binding can come with a whole ass almanac of different effects and bonuses, so having a tool that just makes the entire process 33% quicker is pretty much like universally good no matter what. There's not much more I can add to this one, and the only way you'd get me to take it off is if I need a really specific build that just needs that many blues for some reason. Something I thought was kind of funny was comparing the binding speeds across multiple glimpses of the game in production. In 2019's Nintendo Treehouse, you whip that shit out faster than a fist fight in the phone booth, but a Gamescom video from just earlier this year sees the same animation extended by 3 times its previous length, only for them to finally settle somewhere in the middle. Kinda looks like Sharp Dart had wind-up frames too. Well, glad they got rid of that shit. Number 6, Multibinder. The proud owner of the single most questionable design in the whole game. I don't remember taking a bad Dragon sponsorship, but if that's what's on the roster for today, then I guess I'll just keep reading. Once again, Craft Bind not affected. Fuck you. Shove it up your ass. But Craft Bind also gives you a full top off anyways, so I'm not too sure how Multibinder would even buff that to begin with. Okay, so unfuck you. Whatever you put in your ass, give me that back, please. Basically, all the benefits I listed off with Injector Band gets applied twofold with Multibinder. Any on-heal effects that are activated with specific crest get enhanced by the Multibinder. Beast and Witch both get an extra mask they can heal, and that means an extra 4th branch lashing from anyone near you when using Witch. It triggers the initial damage and subsequent damage ticks of Claw Mirrors twice, that's just fucking stupid, like that's ridiculously strong. An Overdosed Hornet can heal 2 masks as opposed to just 1. Pretty insane. My only negative here is clearing Muck Maggots will take both binding animations instead of just one, like it maybe should. Yeah, just kidding. The game got patched and now that's exactly what the Multibinder does. So I'm glad I tried this on instead of just thinking it was a Deep Focus clone, because it ends up being way more than that in practice. Number 5, Weavelight. Weavelight suffers from IDS, Incomplete Description Syndrome, the same terminal disease that threatens to claim the life of other tools and items like Warding Bell and Magnetite Dice. Only the Silk regen speed is described, but the arguably stronger aspect of the tool gets entirely left out, which is its ability to regenerate 1 extra Silk strand, effectively functioning as a 4th Silk Heart and creating an incredibly comfortable Silk build that gives you exactly as much Silk as you need for 1 skill. And in a little over 8 seconds of complete and total passivity, you're just gonna have another one straight off rip. This is one of Weavelight's most memorable advantages, but this is also a fraction of its true power. The hidden treasure with this one comes with how it affects Clawline. Platforming sections involving Clawline feel twice as manageable. Combat sections where you should be using Clawline, which is almost all of them, feel twice as fun. It opens up a window for the anklets to actually do something, and any tool you're using that involves the use of Silk becomes way more manageable and cost efficient. The regen of your first Silk strand is like wicked fast compared to the rest, like almost 3 times as fast, and stacking Weavelight on top of that shortens it to less than a second, and that is a night and day difference when you're fighting for your life on Mount Fae trying not to freeze your lady balls off. Number 4, the Fractured Mask. I haven't logged in too many attempts at Steel Soul yet, but I know enough about the ropes to know this shit is a goddamn necessity and just should not be taken off on any account. The Fractured Mask is a care package in a tool. If you take 2 masks of damage, only the mask breaks. If you're caught in a grapple attack from a Muckroach, a Carinid, anything that has multiple single hit damage, even the 3-hit grapples from Lost Lace and Grandma Silk, the mask will only break on the last hit. This is not 1 mask of extra health. This is a 6-inch wall of foam padding protecting your flawless Steel Soul run by just taking your last bit of HP and just child-proof bubble wrapping that shit like a next day Amazon package. This is literally just Tears of Denial, but it's in Silksong. Getting hit with the mask on still activates any on-damage effects you have on, like Druid's Eyes and Memory Crystal, despite you not taking damage. You can butt rush Hunter's March and grab it like 15 minutes into a run if you wanted. Repairing it doesn't take shell shards for some reason, and even when you're plasmified, it still works just as intended. This tool actually got me to look at the barbed bracelet again. Like, how the hell did you even do that? I'll be on a Steel Soul run and like forget that I have this on. I'll be prepping myself for an emergency evacuation back to the title screen, and when something takes me by surprise and otherwise would have killed me, that second win gets me smiling wide like I'm playing the lead role in a fucking Happy Meal campaign. You better not skip this. Number 3 and 2, Pollip Pouch and Volt Filament. Okay, so the double feature here might seem a little confusing at first, but I think these two are way more similar than what they seem to be on the surface. Even if its damage improvements are applied with way more variance and inconsistencies, I still think Pollip Pouch can just be thought of as another Volt Filament, but instead of boosting skills, you're boosting tools. Filament's power boost has a very narrow range. Even if it doesn't exactly boost every Silk skill by 25% to the number, it's consistent enough that you can expect pretty much the same boost no matter what you're using. Pouch, on the other hand, has insane synergy with Cogflies and Rosary Cannon, adding around 50 to 60% and potentially even doubling the damage of Rosary Cannon per shot, although this is a horribly impractical way to use the tool and you probably shouldn't do it. But high damage tools like Pin Pillow or Volt Vessels don't apply their damage slowly enough to benefit from the pouch's gradual effect. You might be able to wring out like an extra 10 damage from it, but don't expect anything game-changing. What makes the pouch so versatile is that it applies an effect to all red tools, even ones that may not seem able to receive the venom effect like Flea Brew and Plasmium File. Flea Brew imbues Hornet's needle attacks with venom, and the Plasmium File gives you an extra mask that detonates in 3 seconds, covering the area in this cloud of put, like you farted. You fucking farted on something. That's the build. The synergy between this and Flint Slate can get bent sideways down the back of the sofa, it's so bad, but it does add to the already large tally of different interactions you can get out of the pouch. Filament comes with the ability to stack additively with the Shaman Crest bonus, totaling out to 65% increased skill power, and the Scientific Accuracy DLC, I guess, dropped earlier than expected because water sources actually conduct electricity, making them the perfect amplifier when using silk skills in places like Shellwood and Bilewater. The Filament also gives your skills some extra tick damage that's basically just an extra flat 5 damage, but the amount of ticks deviates slightly between skills. Silk Spear gets 2 ticks, Sharp Dart only gets 1 despite the skill containing 4 hits in total, Threadstorm gets 2 for the base form and then 1 more during the extended form, Rune Rage gets either 1 or 2 ticks depending on how many runes strike the same enemy, and Cross Stitch and Pale Nails each get 1 tick no matter what. This all sounds very complicated, but each tick is only 5 more damage. It's basic addition. It's not like you're rediscovering the fucking theory of relativity or anything. There's a directness to Volt Filament you don't really get with the pouch, just because of the sheer range of help it wants to give you depending on what pointy objects you're flailing around. And I guess that's why it sounds better to me to put the Filament above it. When lining up all the red tools and counting how many of them actually receive a bonus greater than 25%, there's really not a lot. But that insinuates tools are guaranteed to reach their damage ceiling in every situation, which is just not how this game works. Sometimes an enemy just really doesn't want to go near the tax you just laid down. Sometimes a conch cutter clips an enemy for 7 damage one time and then tells you to shove it in your ass. And in that instance, an extra 6 damage from the venom is enough to almost double what you accomplished. Not every ball you hit's gonna be a home run. And once you start looking at Pollip Pouch as a stopgap for when a tool just doesn't behave the way you want it to, it starts making a lot more sense. Look, there are 2 kinds of players in Silksong. Those who know the Circlet is the best blue tool in the game, and those who don't know, but will know. You're smacking fuckers with 28 damage per strike with all 4 crafting kits, and once you've discovered the secrets behind making this tool work, you will never play the same game again. More Accurate Hornet already did a quick video on this highlighting some of the shenanigans you can get into with this tool, but in layman's terms, Circlet can activate during an attack and during a dash. As long as you're pressing double jump slightly before you dash or attack, the Circlet will activate. You can also take Clawline into double jump in this game like absurdly fast, like stupid fast. And since the Circlet activates during a double jump and a glide, stalling your float down by mixing in attacks and claw lines can effectively keep you in the air forever. Or at least until whatever you're whacking is dead, because hits need to actually, hit something for the circlet to reset. And this isn't some, like, precision speedrunner button work or anything. Like, I'm literally just double jumping and then spamming X and A at the same time. I cannot stress enough what an insanely easy trick this is to pull off, and half the battle is just knowing it's there to begin with. I feel like we're rapidly exiting the point in the game's lifespan where people just want to sit in the corner with Weavelight and pale nails and watch a video essay on a second monitor. People are finally uncovering the secrets of Hornet's moveset, and honestly, I'm tired of pretending this tool is just for recording montages and looking fancy. Buzzsaws fucking piss me off. The platforming in White Palace spent years sliding me in very unique and intimate ways, and now I finally get to take that pent-up trauma and just make it Farloom's problem. And doing it with my very own buzzsaw just makes it that much more poetic.